G'day taxpayers, welcome to Economic Reform Week, Month and Year. No doubt we'll see a lot of coverage of what people are proposing be done, and to be frank, we know those ideas. They've been doing the rounds for decades, to be honest. That the reform agenda to make Australia more productive is very well known. Obviously, it's changed a little bit with technology and artificial intelligence sort of driving some of the more recent discussion. But basically, most of the policy ideas have been exhaustively examined by government departments, by think tanks, by academics, and by a whole range of other people who know about these sorts of things. So that's not to be cynical, but we know what's got to be done. And the biggest impediment to these reforms is you, the electorate, that a lot of good ideas come up every single day. And why, if they're such damn good ideas, why doesn't the government implement them? Have a think about it for a second. Why doesn't the government embrace these changes? Because, of course, most of these changes require legislative change. So that's one issue. So they've got to take responsibility for it. The reason they don't is that they fear you, the voters, will vote them out next time. That there's this concern that the big target, if you like, policy approach that governments take to elections is a losing strategy, because a lot of vested interests can easily snipe away at tiny segments of the reform agenda, and governments lose elections. So it requires a salesperson or a series of them from the government and from the media and from the think tanks to say, yep, this is a good idea. So that's the important part of the reform agenda. It's actually getting buy-in from the electorate, because we know what the ideas are. Now, the other thing that is most important, that most of the reforms which improve the national well-being of the economy require someone to lose out. That this notion that no one will be worse off from this policy change is an absurd one, because a lot of the ideas will mean someone or sub-segment of the economy will lose out. And that's where it gets difficult to reform. So think mining taxes, think franking credits, think negative gearing. These are the sort of things that we know are such basic and good ideas, but because a tiny proportion of the population didn't like them, and they lobbied hard and they had a friendly media in many instances bagging the government for these policy changes, they didn't get implemented. Anyway, so when people talk about tax reform, yep, some people will lose out if you change tax rules. You will lose out. Bad luck, Charlie. This is for the good of the nation. We've got to do it. Be it superannuation. Just look at the $3 million question and unrealised gains sort of issue. Yeah, some people are going to lose out. Yeah, people with a truckload of money are going to lose out. But it's a necessary reform to make the super system more fair and efficient and the like. Getting rid of duplication between federal, state and local governments, or basically abolish the states, in other words. That would be another big reform. But hey, which government's going to implement that? And by the way, for that you need the buy-in of the state governments and territory governments. So that ain't going to happen. Getting rid of airport curfews, for example, another productivity reform. Why not? Why do we have these billions of dollars building another airport in Sydney when if we open the existing airport, the Kingsford Smith one, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we wouldn't need that other airport. So the fact that we have a curfew means productivity is being restricted. And again, some people lose out if we obviously had planes flying 24/7 into Sydney. For example, reducing prison sentences. The cost of looking after prisoners is another huge cost to the economy. And you've got people locked up in prison who aren't adding to the workforce. So that's, again, not a good part of the economy, let alone a whole lot of issues relating to retirement age and engaging with older workers into the economy. My friend Everald Compton's a massive advocate, and he's spot on about how we can improve productivity by tapping the currently unused older part of the population to work. Should be done, could be done, can be done, but of course then you think, oh, well, what about you going after oldies to sort of fund economic growth and those sort of things? So identifying what has to be done is the easy part. We know it. We know it. There's a list longer than your arm about what can and should and could be done. It requires the electorate to be taken on board with this. And this is where we need Jim Chalmers to be a fantastic salesperson. I've got every confidence that he can do that. And his colleagues and the media and everybody listens to these things. Even if it might cost you a few bucks to reform the economy, as we've seen with reforms over many, many decades, that they do yield benefits, even if there's a short-term cost to a tiny segment of the Australian economy. So good luck with the round table. Yeah, I hope that they can yield some reforms that get implemented quickly, easily, efficiently, and that we can move on to enjoying a stronger economy.